Hey guys, what's going on? Djriff, and today I'm going to be talking about Shadow Priest Clarity of Power, all-encompassing. So there's a couple of things that need to be taken into consideration when you're running Clarity of Power. The main one, obviously, is your talents. Now, there are two main talents that you'll be swapping between, depending on what you're going to be doing, what kind of fight, as well as your gear. The staple is basically Mindbender, and you use that when you don't have the class trinket, or if you're not going to be able to make full use of the class trinket, thus rendering Insanity kind of useless. Mindbender, the rotation for it is great. It's very fluid. It's a lot more mobile than Insanity, that's for sure, but it also has some drawbacks in comparison to Insanity. One of the big ones is you can't burn down a target as fast as you normally could. So with this, with Mindbender as your thing, your rotation isn't really going to be too different. As you can see on the screen, this is your basic priority list, and I'll just take you through the rough rotation. Not really going to be worrying about an opener right now, but essentially you're going to be opening the same way the entire time. One of the big things that you need to be aware of is Mind Spike will cut off Devouring Plague. However, it's actually a DPS game to cut it off in the first place. Ideally, if you could fill it with something else, you want to actually do that to maintain Devouring Plague on the target. But if you have nothing left for a filler, then that would be ideal to actually just spike it off and keep on mind spiking. So your fillers are going to be in order of priority: Mindbender, Cascade, or Halo, or don't ever run Divine Star. It's a DPS loss all across the board. Or Powered Shield, only if you're going to be taking damage. Now, currently, the DPS of Reflective Shield is above what a Mind Spike can actually deal damage with. Granted, once you get more mastery, it's going to trade off, and you won't be able to, it won't be as big of damage. However, as your intellect scales, so will the damage of Reflective Shield, as well as if you have actually a lot of versatility. Like I only have 3%, so not much. Reflective Shield is one of the very few things in the game that actually double dips in damage. So, just to start off the rotation, go on to Mind Spike here, Mindbender, Cascade, and then Mindbender again. Now, we could build all the way up to 5 orbs, which I'm going to do because my Mindbender's nowhere close to coming off cooldown. And it will be after this rotation. So, Devouring Plague, this, I'm going to Power Shield here, boom, and now I'm going to spike, and I did not cut off my Devouring Plague. Now I'm going to do it again, except this time I'm going to use Cascade, and I'm going to cut it off. Nope, I just missed it. Good. And that's really all there is to it. You can, if you wish to, off-dot on targets. You just have to use it in the filler. But it's really not that big of a DPS game. Additionally, Cascade will actually net you more DPS, but that's really your call if you want to do that. Alright, now I'm going to move into another one. I'm going to move into Clarity of Power and Insanity with the class trinket. Alright, so when you're running Clarity of Power with Insanity, this can be the talent you're selected, it's a little bit different. Now, your opener is still roughly the same priority as it is with Mindbender. However, here you're going to be using Shadowfiend instead. Now, the uptime difference in Premonition, which is the multi-strike buff that you get from the 4-piece set, is roughly actually the same uptime. The main reason that you'd be using Mindbender in the first place is if you need to target swap a lot, and at the end of the video, I'll talk about some macros that are extremely useful for Shadow, and I'll post them in the description below. Now, as you may have seen in my other video talking about the dotless Insanity rotation, it's dotless for two reasons. One, you're not dot weaving. Dot weaving is actually a very slight, and I mean very slight, like 1k to 2k DPS gain. And it's absolutely rigid, and if you make a mistake, it's actually a DPS loss. So when I say dotless, I'm talking about no dots, as well as you're not going to be using Mindflay. Now, there's a couple prerequisites that you're going to have to do. At minimum, you need 35% haste, or, like 2,500 haste, roughly. If you're a goblin, you could use a little less, but you may need to increase this haste percent, or your actual haste, based on your latency. So right now, I have 108 latency. I have a download going in the background. I'm trying to inflate it a little bit, so that way I can see how well it does with higher latency that some players may have. Now, before I was rocking the DSI and the Unblinking Gaze of C. That's my two trinkets, and that was just for Mindbender under the assumption that you don't have Reputation of War, the class trinket. In order to actually do this rotation, or even run Insanity, really outside of like AoE burns, you need this trinket, like absolutely need it. I got really lucky. It's Warforged with a socket, which is awesome, still heroic, but hey, I'll get Mythic Archimon eventually, probably like in the next month or so. Sorry, I'm also really sick when I'm making this. Let's see here. Then in addition, I'm also using the Iron Reaver Piston, and that's pushed me up to 35% haste, which my gear I don't have enough without it. So, basic rotation, starting with no orbs. You're going to be opening with Mind Spike into a Mind Blast, then followed up with Shadowfiend, and then Mindflay for 2 ticks. Mindflay for 2 ticks, then Mind Blast, and then Mindflay until you hit 5 stacks of the Reputation of War debuff, and then, which I think is called Mental Anguish, and then you will Mind Spike, and then Mind Blast, and then move into the general rotation. So I'm going to say the rotation out loud as I'm doing it. You'll be able to see my cast bar here to see exactly what I'm casting. And yeah, let's get into this. Alright, so Mind Spike into Mind Blast, into Shadowfiend, and then Mindflay. I was slightly off on my counts earlier. Cool, now I'm at 5 stacks, and boom. So Mind Spike into Insanity, Mind Blast, and then Sanity, making sure I hit this last tick, and boom. Back into it. Now, it's extremely important that you hit that last tick. Otherwise, you'll mess up the debuff. I kind of missed it there. And it'll be very close. So even with 100 MS and just above 35% haste, I'm able to actually do this rotation quite well. Now, your MS is going to change in a raid environment, and there's nothing that you can really do about that. I think I might have messed up there, but that's okay. So, in the case where you do mess up, just channel Mindflay once and keep the debuff going, and then go back into it as soon as you can. Now this is going to throw off the rotation a little bit, but that's okay, because I can get right back into it right now. And it's a DPS game to do that. If you mess up, it's not that big of a deal. You can recover. Don't panic, don't do anything, just keep a cool head, and you'll be fine. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is macros. Now, as a priest, specifically a shadow priest, there's 3 macros that you want to use. So, taking a look at these under my specific macros for this character, the first one is Dispersion. Now, Dispersion is a shadow priest, big personal cooldown with 90% damage reduction. That on top of the Glyph of Fade, which you should always be running right here, anytime you can make use of it, is a fantastic source of damage reduction. On top of power shielding yourself, if you can, if you're not going to upset your Disc Priest, you can actually survive quite a bit of stuff. So basically all this macro is it replaces Dispersion on your bar, and then you press it, and you activate Dispersion, you press it again, and it cancels it. So if you just needed to activate it real quick to say, you pulled Threat, fat chance, or, and Fade was on cooldown, or something like that, or you're the last person, alive, or something, something that happens to where you start getting attacked, or you're about to help absorb a mechanic, it helps you get back to DPSing faster without having to either click it off up here on the buffs or wait for it to actually go away. The next macro that's super important is Shadowfiend. Now this works for Mindbender as well, regardless of which talent that you have. As Shadowfiend is Mindbender is Shadowfiend, it still acts as the same, just the skill itself is replaced. So all this does is you cast Shadowfiend with it, obviously, and then you set your pet to defensive and to attack. And what you should do is whenever you cast Shadowfiend or Mindbender, just spam that button while casting other stuff. And then you are free to swap targets, and your pet will keep attacking the target that it is already, netting you a DPS gain. Now, there's a couple times when I've done Manaroth or a boss where I got to move out a bunch or I'm swapping targets a bunch, and that target will die, that my little Mindbender or my little Shadowfiend will actually come and follow me around, and I yell at the dude, like, what are you doing, man? Like, go attack the boss. Don't stand by me. This macro will actually help prevent that. There's another useful one as a silence focus. Basically, you can just focus a target, like say you're on interrupt duty, and you can target all willy-nilly all across the board, and you can see it like with my uniframes above the target frames. I don't actually know what they're called, which is LVUI, by the way, or tiny plates is also a good alternative. Basically, you can see the cast bar above it, and you can just interrupt without having to swap target, and it can actually be a DPS gain. Now, the absolute biggest DPS gain that you can get absolutely is mouseover Shadow Word Death. You can also do this for your dots, however, I prefer to just click and dot, as I have a Razor Knock mouse. And it makes it a lot easier for me. However, with Shadow Word Death, this saves you time from clicking on a target that you normally wouldn't have a chance to snipe, and allows you to snipe it without leaving your current target. Now, there's a couple of problems when running any mouse over glyph. If somebody's standing in front of it, if you mouse over somebody else's model, it's kind of hard to see. So make sure that you have an add-on that when somebody is below, your threshold of 20%, and most add-ons that provide something similar to tiny plates or LVUI nameplates can actually indicate it, and you can change it. So they'll the frame, like for instance for me, the frame gets outlined in red, and I know that, hey, okay, cool, I can snipe this guy. And so that'll help you generate orbs at a extensive rate without losing your current target's or losing DPS because you missed the snipe. This doesn't always work for the problems earlier, and one of the ways that you can get around it is, say this target right here that I have targeted right now. Actually, I'm going to go with this target back here. So the way I'm standing right now, it's kind of hard, especially with everything going on. And normally I'd have my camera way up, but it's really hard for me to specifically target this one in the back. With the Shadow Word Death, and my mouse would probably be right here over this guy's unit frame. So what I would do is, there's a couple of tricks that you could do. One, you can move your mouse way the hell out of the way, but that could be problematic. Alternatively, you can just hold your right mouse button and then press Shadow Word Death. And because your right mouse button is held, it's not actually mousing over anything, and you can actually just Shadow Word Death whatever target that you have selected. It works well for a DPS class, not so much for healers, but it's something that you could do in a pinch to help you get a DPS gain. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and check me out on Twitch Monday through Friday, 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Have a good one.